So I think that the first subject we're going to talk about is going to turn into a little bit of a rant for me, probably. So I saw a post in the week, and I saw it shared by a few people as well, and it was about what Easter has stolen from Ostara. Now, there is absolutely so much here to pick apart. You might hear that and think, oh yeah, I can see that. But no, there is so much. So this is probably going to be quite a long one. This person in this post later sort of said, you can reframe this if you like and say inherited. So I'm assuming they meant inherited in a kind of sarcastic way, still meaning stolen. But stolen and inherited are vastly different things. They're very, very different. And if stolen is not actually true, then it's actually a very inflammatory word. And I think that posts like this, things like this, are how groups of people end up hating each other. And that's really, really not good. So I want to make it really, really clear. We've spoken about this before. I've mentioned this, but we haven't sort of gone into it. But Ostara is a modern celebration. It's not ancient. It's not ancient. So we know that back in the 7th century, there are some writings from a monk. We refer to him as the Venerable Bede. Bede was his name. And we know that he spoke about Ostara, a goddess, but there was very, very little that was written about her and about this subject. In fact, that's really the only text that we have. Now, we can't go back into the future. Into the past. We can only rely on the information that we've got written down. We haven't got a time machine. We know the things that are passed on through family and family. There are obviously oral stories and stuff like that, but we know very, very little about her and perhaps about this time of year. Now, the name Ostara was coined in the 1970s, 1974 to be precise, by a man called Aidan Kelly, who was designing a pagan craft calendar for all pagans, really. So he wanted it to include all the dates that might be of interest to all pagans. And he named the spring equinox Ostara, and he named the autumn equinox Marbon, and we've spoken about that lots of times before. So really, Ostara is a modern take on the spring equinox, and we know that lots of different cultures, lots of different countries for thousands of years have marked, observed, honoured, celebrated the equinoxes and the solstices. We know that, but Ostara is a modern invention. So therefore, Easter, Ostara, spring celebrations do indeed use symbology and archetypes and things like that from just human evolution, the past, and nature, including like Norse mythology and stories. Everything evolves and changes. Everything does. We as people do, belief systems do, countries do, and witchcraft does as well. And some pagans do not celebrate the Wheel of the Year. It's not something that you have to celebrate as a pagan or as a witch. Now, obviously many do, but you don't have to. You don't have to celebrate any of the festivals. You can celebrate one. It's entirely up to you. You might have 4 that you really, really like. You might have 4 that are completely random, i.e. not just purely the solstices and the equinoxes. You might have a mixture, but only celebrate 4. That's entirely up to you. You don't have to call it Ostara. You can call it what you want. It is the spring equinox. It is the astronomical start of spring. It's something that happens to our Earth. It is an event. That means that it doesn't have prescribed symbols. You can't say that these symbols belong to this and anyone else that uses them has stolen them. So in this post they were talking about eggs in baskets and hiding eggs to find them and coloured eggs and things like that. Those things don't belong to anyone, I would say. So wherever you are geographically and whatever your own personal traditions are, that is going to shape some of the symbols that you associate with the spring equinox, or at least it should. You know, the spring equinox is going to look very, very different in the northern hemisphere, probably, to what it looks like in the southern hemisphere, in terms of looking out the window, in terms of, you know, some of those seasonal things like hares, for example. You know, we all have different animals, we all have different plants. So yeah, I think that we have to be really, really careful. We have to be really careful with our language. We have to actually think about what we're saying, and we have to think about the impact of what we're saying. And as a pagan in the UK, and I think this person's in the UK, I have a choice. I have a choice as a person and as a pagan. I can choose to celebrate Easter if I want. No one's going to stop me if I do that. I might want to celebrate Easter with my non-pagan family. Or I can ignore Easter and not bother with it. You know, I do have a choice, and they've stolen it, I think, is dangerous language. It's dangerous territory to get into. Easter is its own belief system from its own religion, and it has a right to be here. You know, the Christian faith has as much right to be here as it does, you know, having my pagan faith. Okay, I might not agree with it. I might think it's a made up story. I might have all sorts of beliefs about that. But all belief systems change and grow and evolve, and they have every right to put whatever symbols they want to with that. People carry their folklore, their songs, their stories, their traditions, their celebrations, their beliefs. They carry them through the ages, through their life, through their families, and so things evolve and change and grow. Nothing is clear cut. Nothing is what you call black and white. So I think as pagans, it's really, really important to choose love and not to create posts like this that are really, really divisive and I think almost a bit discriminatory and detrimental, I think, to the well-being of everybody. I think that, you know, paganism is the more the merrier path, and that is exactly how it should be. If I was holding an Ostara celebration, I would not personally care if pagans, non-pagans, you know, Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, Jews, whoever want to come along and celebrate that. I think the more the merrier. I think that's a wonderful thing, because we are all traveling on different paths to the same source, really. They all end up in the same place, essentially. And I think that you have to expect syncretism. I think that in somewhere like the UK, where it's a massive melting pot of beliefs, thoughts, cultures, heritage, languages, religions, I think that, yeah, you're going to have this crossover. And, you know, symbols, nature symbols, things that are happening in nature, you know, can be used by anybody. So I think we need to do better. Who cares if Easter has now become about eggs? Yes, we have nature, that's what we focus on. We focus on things like eggs and spring flowers and stuff like that. Christians have their story of a guy, you know, but they can use eggs too. There's no rules. Resurrection can be sort of portrayed in so many different ways as any other theme, you know, life, rebirth, death, joy, love. All of these things can be displayed and represented in so many different ways, and I don't think any of us have the right to claim that one way is our way. So I think we need to change the narrative. I think we need to just concentrate on what we do and what we enjoy and what we celebrate, and I don't honestly think that it matters if other faiths are using the same symbols, even if that's not, you know, part of their original story and that's something they've, you know, picked up as a result of something else. Like, I really don't think it matters. And I think we need to not create these divisive posts, especially as nothing was stolen from Ostara. It's a name that was coined in the 1970s, and it's not an ancient celebration. Yes, maybe celebrating the spring equinox, like I've said, we have done that through different cultures for many thousands of years, we've observed the equinoxes and the solstices. But in terms of like the shaping of celebrations today, we do things in a modern way because we are modern pagans. And I think it's probably a little bit arrogant to, you know, assume that we really know what went on, you know, a long time ago, if we're not there and if there are not definite records. So that's my little rant for today. It's all based in love. My message basically is that we need to love each other and not create, you know, not sort of distance ourselves as groups and expect other groups to, you know, let's have a little bit of love and let's all work together. I think that's my massive rant for the day.